usually don't know what I'm going to talk about, but tonight, it was last night. Senshu, which means hidden treasure. So you have to look really close. It's always hiding somewhere. Asked me to talk about something that they'd studied in the Vimanikaya, on cutting through, called the razor's edge, which is somewhat a name phrase. It was kind of popularized back in the middle of the last century by W. Somerset Maugham, who wrote a book and called it The Razor's Edge. And that phrase, the razor's edge, he got from one of the Upanishads, which are ancient Indian texts consisting of, I think, they're question and answer things back in before the time of the Buddha and after. And I think there's some, as far as this one's the Kasha Upanishad. They talk about the razor's edge. And I think the Hindus, Hindu scholars place it before teachings of the Buddha, and then of course the Buddhist scholars place it after teachings of the Buddha. It's probably right on his birthday. So, but the phrase there, and I have it memorized, so that's why I have it printed out, is I did several of them here. I'm not sure which one I like the best. This one I think is the one that I like. Which goes, rise, rise, wake up, seek the wise, and realize the path is difficult to cross, like the sharpened edge of the razor. So say the wise. Another one is, having obtained these boons, understand them. Like the razor's sharp edge is difficult to traverse. The path to oneself is difficult. The Razor's Edge in the novel tells the story of Larry Durrell, an American pilot traumatized by his experiences in World War I, who sets out in search of some transcendent meaning to life, and runs into the Upanishads and lots of other things. I looked on, was it Rotten Tomatoes? No, independent, oh no, Internet Movie Database, I think. Or no, maybe it was Rotten Tomatoes.
IMDb?
No, it was Rotten Tomatoes. It was RT. Russian television. And it was a critics thing on there, and that 1944, I think, movie was like 100%. So I saw it when I was very, very young, but I don't remember it at all. But 100%, it might be worth going back and taking a look at. With I don't remember do you remember?
Power.
Is it Tyrone Power?
Yeah, Power, and then the woman, Kearney.
No, Gene Tierney.
Tierney.
Yeah, Gene Tierney. So anyway, old movie, black and white. But the idea of the razor's edge, which Trunk Rinpoche mentions in Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, it's a phrase or a phrase that he also liked. The way I'd like to talk about that is to say that the path is like a razor's edge, and that hard to traverse, or dangerous, or painful, because the very thing that you need to look at is something you don't want to look at. And it's different for each person. I've noticed that, talking to hundreds of people over the last several decades. it's so completely, that's even more, just in the last couple of years, it's become more and more astonishing to me how completely different it is for each person. One of the reasons that makes it so difficult to even practice a spiritual path, to practice what is the fancy word is soteriological, or that which will awaken you, or that which you can understand your true nature, or realize the truth. Buddhism is not the only way, of course, lots of ways. And within Buddhism, there's all kinds of different paths that are suited to different ways of being confused, you could say. Quite often in the different schools, there's disagreement about which way is right, and who had it right, and who said it right, and which way is wrong. How the Mahayana is a corruption of the Buddha's teaching. Just that statement is a corruption of the Buddha's teaching. If I was getting judgmental, which I'm not doing that. I'm not writing any books. But it's so astonishing how each one of us, through a spiritual practice, in this particular situation, an awareness practice, which you do somewhat similar to what I'm about to say, hold very still, have all of your senses open, and look what keeps moving. Because what keeps moving is your confusion. And your experience of it might be, well, this sucks. I'm bored. Shouldn't there be, how about, well, I read somewhere where if you meditated then, have some kind of, start to resonate with the vibrations of the, coming from the center of the earth or whatever. We're not really mocking that so much as, but if people do that, people get off on that. People spend their whole lives trying to pursue, invent, fuel what my teacher Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche called spiritual materialism, trying to use spiritual techniques and methods to actually get somewhere, have a spiritual accomplishment. Lord of body, Lord of speech, Lord of mind. Three ways that it's divided up. Something that if you would read Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, the introduction talks about those three lords. So the razor's edge, the idea there is that we're trying to help you, just like this particular Upanishad, the teacher-student situation that was going on there. The teacher was trying to help a person understand that this is going to be hard. This is not going to, just because you found this teacher, found this path, found this method, this is going to be difficult for you to realize Atman or Brahma, or your, in ancient India, the realization was self-realization. Whereas now we say realize emptiness. As Buddhists, we say realize emptiness. I would like to say this, realize emptiness, then you see what you really realize. But it has to start out as emptiness. Emptiness is path, not result. I don't care what the Prasangika Madhyamikas talk about. But they say everything is emptiness. So talking about this as a razor's edge is a way of saying, look, it's a razor. You're going to have to deal with this kind of cutting feeling, or this danger feeling, or this I don't like this kind of feeling. You're going to have to deal with this in your own way, for you personally. If you want this to be more than just a mundane path of slowly feeling more and more serene, more and more peaceful, calming down. I'm not saying there isn't something to that. There is something to it. Of course, if you just don't have to meditate, just hold still and do nothing, and you'll calm down. The issue or the problem or the challenge is you probably won't do it very long, because you'll think that you're calm. The condition of calmness is just that, a condition. What happens with conditions? They change. They don't last. That's the problem with conceptual or idealistic realization. It does not last. It fades. Anything that you realize is going to fade. So what won't fade? What can't fade? What can't vanish? That which has not appeared can't vanish. And then you could say, I'll ask it for you. How can you realize something? What if it doesn't appear? So if it doesn't appear, I understand that it can't vanish, but if it's not appeared, then it's not there, is it? Yes and no. But the encouragement of the razor's edge is to get you individually, each one of you personally, in your own personal mind, heart, spirit, beingness, how you are driving the car, you're driving to work, you're driving home, you're driving to Walgreens, or you're sitting in your house, in your room. If you have a place where you meditate, you're sitting there, and you're dealing with intense emotions that may not have a story to them, that are difficult. It's very, very difficult to have things crank up that hurt, that are abrasive, that the texture of these things are like razors. It's very difficult not to think, well, I have to stop this, don't I? Don't I have to stop this difficulty? Don't I have to find the off switch? And I would say you need to find an off switch. Yes, I'll go along with that, but not to the suffering, because the off switch to a suffering is going to be a drug, one kind or another. And there's lots of drugs. It's going to be some kind of a palliative or temporary fix to stop it. You have to find where the suffering is getting its fuel from. And it's getting its fuel, anything I made up, from the three poisons: pushing on it, pulling on it, shutting down. Three poisons. I want it, I don't want it, who cares? Passion, aggression, ignorance. Passion, aggression, ignorance. It's just samsara. It's a circle. You jump on that merry-go-round, and it's success and failure, pain and pleasure, pain and pleasure. It's circular. So sometimes I use the image of a food processor. Sitting meditation is like, it's just an image, so it's just like this. It's like when you sit after you've sat for a while and practiced for a while. It's just like you pulled the plug on a food processor. All of the vegetables fall to the bottom. And then you get back up and they're cranked right back up again. It's just a way of talking about it. Fundamentally, nothing is shut off. So the razor's edge, you might say, ask, or we might discuss, isn't this kind of a pessimistic, or isn't this nihilistic, or isn't this focusing too much on the bad things and not focusing on good and healthy and uplifted? Yep, that's what it is. But it seems necessary to go down in that so you can see the way this kind of crap keeps covering up things, keeps closing down, keeps putting a scrim between you and reality, keeps putting a warp and a woof between everything that you, what? Is that me buzzing? Putting a scrim between you and everything that you are what? Not separate from. Separating you from your world. Separating you from, again, fancy word is reality. What the hell is that? I don't know. It's something that's supposed to be complete, total, and unequivocal and unchallengeable. So using the razor's edge is a way of a little bit of a romantic way of encouraging a person to go in, go find out who you are, no matter what it takes. This life is not going to last. You know, it could, even if you're young, it could end any minute. It could end tonight, and then you were back into the cosmic soup again. You know, and then you don't know what this is your. As it says in the four reminders, first contemplate the preciousness of being free and well favored. First contemplate the preciousness, the complete value of being free to come to this meeting, to not be born in Afghanistan right now, or hundreds of other countries. Well favored in that you're so well favored that your mind is not locked up with a bunch of fundamentalist jargon that ties, that is so fearful and operates out of so much fear that it won't open up and breathe and see trees and see flowers and plants. It's always absorbed in some kind of a fear, paranoia mentality that feels like we have to follow these rules, these laws. So you're well favored also in that you're not so wild and carefree, not just a complete supercharged hedonism. That for the next 20, 30 years, you think that it's just about playing and having a good time and party down. Party down is not too bad. Do a little bit of party down. So again, it's the middle way. It's not too tight, not too loose. You personally, that's why I don't, and people that consider themselves students of mine, I wait and see what we do that mutually. I don't give orders to people unless they're monks, in which case you're pretty much screwed. But we work together. I wouldn't think it's been too difficult for me in my life. Too many razors I've dealt with. Been too difficult for me to be laissez-faire about the whole thing. I feel very, very intimately connected with everyone. Just my teaching style or way is much different than either one of my teachers, either Trungpa or Koban, or any other people who I have considered teachers, Mipam Rinpoche, Sakya Mipam Rinpoche, or His Holiness the 16th, His Holiness the 17th, Karmapa. So everyone is so different, but well favored in that you can actually consider it for this afternoon, thinking, well, I think I'll go to Sokukoji tonight and see what that guy's got to say. Or I think I have some time this afternoon. I'm gonna sit. I'm gonna practice for a while. I'm gonna do some. I got a whole afternoon on Saturday. I'm not doing anything. I was gonna go play golf, but I think I'm just gonna sit on my butt and look at the wall for 4 hours. That's well favored. Someone whose intelligence, whose innate Buddha nature starts to shine out through the confusion, where you don't need someone like me to say, go sit, although that's what this place is for. I don't really tell people what to do. I don't need to. If you come here, especially if you live here, it's already set up. Have to sit 6.5 hours a day. It's a big dose. Needs to be a big dose. Sent you anything specific on the Razor's Edge that you have a question on?
I think that the context came up when since you brought that up, and I asked her, well, what does it feel like to walk on the razor's edge? But I think her her answer was, there's nothing there on either side. So is that no reference point?
Yeah, this is called the wisdom of insecurity. But we don't recognize it as security because we're still self-centered. We're still grasping at a self. And you have to actually see that the very emptiness you're experiencing is there's neither this nor is there that. Oh my gosh, what can I do? Well, you don't have to do anything. Which there's no guarantee that you won't completely panic and shit your pants. and maybe shitting your pants might be a good idea.
Can you say more about the wisdom of insecurity? I've not heard of that.
I think it's a title of a book by Pema. It's a pretty good phrase.
Alan Watts had a book too,
He had
decades ago.
Who's going to top Alan? One of the best books I ever read by Alan, I read all of them, was the book on the taboo against knowing who you are. It's a great book. So the wisdom of insecurity is to see that the feeling of insecurity means that you're not leaning on, you can't find any reference points. The downside is for ego, it's freaky, it's painful. It's like, ooh, now what? What do I do? Maybe I should meditate more. Maybe not. Maybe you should go complain to your teacher.
Is it insecurity because you're looking for a reference point still?
Yeah.
So how does the wisdom arise when you're still in search of a reference point?
Because eventually you'll see that what you're doing. And if you're interacting with a sangha, in other words, a community of people who are studying, and if you're interacting with a teacher who is not about to save your ass, but has a willingness to let you suffer the way you are without solving it for you, that's unusual. I was very lucky in that regard. So what you would see is, I don't know what to do next. And it might come up in that way, and then it might come up as words like, well, I guess I don't need to know what to do next. But that doesn't seem to help either. You have a question?
What is the pressure to keep walking on the razor's edge?
The inspiration to be sane, and the inspiration to save all beings. It could happen over here, which means I'm sick of being crazy. Be saying that I'm just tired of not knowing what to do. I'm sick and tired of feeling insane, or feeling fear, or having negative feelings arise in me unsummoned. They don't seem to be like they come out of nowhere. Just the slightest little trigger out here, and suddenly I feel terrible. We just get sick and tired of it. So, or if that's not happening so much here, then this pain that you see in others, you have the inspiration to save those, to help those people that are suffering, especially the ones that they're interfacing with the world in such a way that they are not doing so well. So you might continue on the razor's edge for others. Bodhisattva vow reminds you of that. I vow to be with all things. That means all beings. But that also means anything that occurs, I'm not fighting with it. The most negative feeling comes up, or a thought or whatever, don't fight with it. If you feel like you want to murder somebody, don't fight with that. Don't accept it either. Don't reject it. Don't look away from it. More.
What if continuing to walk on the razor's edge feels like you're fighting with maybe not falling off of it or not letting it split you?
This is called the path. And functioning as your teacher, I would say you're doing it correctly. Keep going. And whatever arises, whatever feelings arise about this walk, that you're not doing it correctly, that you're doing that, whatever arises, don't change it. It's nothing else. Whatever arises is just what it is. It will take a while for you to see that what arises is plus, minus, and neutral, the same thing. They're not separate. And then the further realization after that, you think, well, this must be it. But that's not even it. Then you realize that what is arising, you're not separate from that. And then you realize what you're not separate from is not separate from what you thought was separate, which was not separate. And I'm making complete sense here. Jeff.
You're talking about looking at the defilements, digging into all the rough spaces and things like that. Is there a difference in the amount of that actually comes up? Like, there's sort of a person can have the viewpoint of looking at whatever comes up, not having any preferences, good or bad, just, a certain basic place of awareness with whatever comes up. And not obviously bad things come up in that and you deal with that. But then there's this is what I'm wondering about. This is the question.
Okay.
But let's say a person gets to the point where he or she says, I really want to get through. So there's just an intention that comes up to work on the defilements more. Would that intention bring up more stuff?
It could.
It could.
It could. I don't think there's any exact kind of formulaic thing that will give us any one of us any little roadmap. Where we've thought about it in such a way. I can kind of see where things are going to go like this. It's probably going to be driving blind all the time. The more you operate out of awareness, the less you will know in terms of information. The more lost you will be. This is terrifying to ego. And this is why it's so necessary to have a teacher who will not indulge your fear.
So it almost sounds like for you that wouldn't be something that a person should cultivate.
Oh, no, I don't have any set up standards. I don't have any standards. I barely even know who I am. I don't have any standards.
Well, it just happens to be that this is something I've been reflecting on
I could tell.
the last few months or several months. Is this something I need to? Obviously, I realize that.
I think the most important. Let me interject here.
Yeah.
Because I see where you're going. I think the very most important thing that you, as an individual, even though we could talk about this in a private interview, still, since you bring it up, I would say the very most important thing for you to do is ramp up the sitting practice.
Mm-hmm.
This is what most people are missing. Most people are sitting for an hour, 2 hours a day. Not enough. It's not enough in most cases. I'm not saying in every case, but you really need to do that. Really need to spend time alone in retreat. Seems to be necessary without really extended practice where you just have no recourse but to just be who you are, be genuine. You have to be who you are. And this is difficult because who we think we are, is a bundle of problems and fears and hopes. And we think that's who we are. And we keep trying to get rid of that so that we can be no self. But what we don't realize is that we are not separate from all that. That's the warfare. Thinking something is wrong, we need to stop it. It's happening all over the world. It's happening in just about everybody, except when it's not. And when it's not, it's like a non-event. So I would say I wouldn't change your dynamic there because I don't interfere with somebody's the word is intellection. I don't interfere with that. I'm very, very respectful of people's karma. I'm not trying to get anybody to be monks or receive precepts or the only thing I really push people on, if they allow me, They come in here and ask questions like you just did. As I say, sit more, strengthen that which sees, and don't take away that which thinks or is dealing with concepts, information, accepting, rejecting, analyzing, pushing down, pulling up, whatever. But reprioritize it so that what gets exercised, what's getting exercised is not the thought process. That's already muscle bound. But that which sees, so that we begin to lead with awareness. We begin to, and how do you know you're doing that? Because you won't know what you're doing. I don't know how else to say it. You won't know what you kind of know what you're doing, but the way in which you know what you're doing is more like a sense of humor rather than any kind of actual knowledge about it. So a lot of awareness combined with the processes that you're going through, the way your thinking process. You're very much what we call a Vajra, very much a conceptual personality structure. You really think things out and you're good at it. When you're really good at something like that, we tend to hang on to it because we're so good at thinking things out and being clear and talking to ourselves about it, then we tend to kind of hang on to it a little bit too long. It's like starting to chew on a menu. No, it's time to order the meal. Put the menu down. I'm not trying to make fun of you, but I'm saying some people are and some people don't know how to read the damn menu. They're so emotional, emotion or passion based that they operate differently and they're not even sure what concepts are. Yes, sir.
So how do we use the intellect in a skillful way to deepen awareness?
Sit a lot. It'll do it by itself. When I say by itself, of course, it's not going to do it totally that way, but awareness. If the awareness is strong, then the intellect finds its own. The intellect lights that spaciousness rather than it would run away from it. So it nurtures the thinking process in such a way. It's much easier to think with no self. If there's a self, then you're always second guessing yourself because there's a self. So you second guess yourself. You're not sure if what you're saying is right or wrong. That does not occur over here anymore. But that once occurred so much that I couldn't even do this. I couldn't get up in front of people. And even if I had notes, or I couldn't do it. I was just paranoid because I knew people were thinking bad thoughts about me. Or I thought they were. Now I know they are. And what's different? I don't mind. What's different? Because I know there's no self here and there's no self there. It's for me to realize and you guys to realize. Mark?
If I sit with the idea of trying to become, let's say, more compassionate, am I doing it wrong?
I wouldn't recommend that approach necessarily. I'm not saying it's wrong. I wouldn't say it's wrong. No. To answer your question, no, it's not wrong. But I would say if you're going to sit, then let's sharpen the blade rather than try to chop things while you're trying to. You can't sharpen a blade and chop things at the same time. You have to do a little bit of separation. Let's pull the blade away from the vegetables. Just sharpen it. Then when you go back to the vegetables, then you're going to have more clarity about who needs their throat slit, who doesn't. Sorry. I couldn't resist that. Jeff?
When earlier you talked about emptiness and you said
Yes.
that you look at that as path
Yes.
rather than,
Goal.
and then you kind of contrasted your approach with Madhyamaka. What could you say more about that?
But basically, and I don't want to get off into the Madhyamaka or the consequence only school, but I'm saying that there's a grasping or a kind of a pointing to emptiness as fruition. Emptiness as the fruition of the Mahayana path, rather than it being, it's the path. The fruition is Buddha nature or Tathagata Garbha. But look who you're talking to. I'm a Zen monk.
So contemplating emptiness or voidness, that's like the method or the
No, the method, the way I understand it, the method is shikantaza, which is also very similar, not exactly, but very similar to the Great Perfection or Dzogchen or Mahamudra. Very similar, just a different way of getting to it. It's very much like just watch what moves, because what moves is delusion, and it is empty of the delusion you add onto it. It's empty of it. So seeing that it's empty, eventually, you could say eventually, if you wanted to use a time dynamic, eventually you would see what is ultimate, and that's the womb of the Tathagatas. I like those fancy words. And not a matter of right or wrong. Anybody who's on the path is doing what they need to do. Doing what they need to do. If you're on the path, if you're whatever you're practicing, Buddha's teaching, there's so many different ways of doing this. It's just that there's a lot of lifetimes going on. Sheldon.
Does the razor's edge just describe our perception of the path?
Yeah. Looks scary. And so that's how you know you're going the right way. Like it said in the Upanishad. That it's, what does it say? The path to oneself is difficult. Well, I would say self, no self. Doesn't matter. The self and the no self. There's no solid being anywhere, including in Hinduism. When realization happens there, then you've got Advaita or non-dual, not two. There's no two, there's also not one. Because if you have one, you're gonna have two. It's called sex. I'm sorry.
You're a funny guy.
I'm just a terrific sit-down comic. Yes,
From Shane,
yes.
he asks, is the space where thoughts arise the same space where the phone rings or a fly lands in my teacup?
Same thing. No inside, no outside.
I just had a thought about space. Is that the only thing that changes space is the movement.
You're wrong. No, you're right. I was just testing you. Who else wants to be insulted?
Great.
I insulted Nate and he never came back. Well, yeah, he did come back. He's here. Didn't I insult you once?
You said I was fucked.
Yeah.
And that was a transmission. But I don't know why I didn't take that personally.
Oh, well,
Should I?
No. Okay. Further questions? We have a couple minutes left. Sheldon.
A question about meditation.
Yes, sir.
If I'm meditating and I'm just observing with my senses open. For some reason, that just doesn't feel any different to me than when I'm off the cushion. Is that the way it's supposed to be? Is that true?
You know, there's not really any supposed to. Everybody's just wired differently. The only thing I can say that knowing you and talking to you without this being a private interview or something like that, I would say the most important thing for you to concentrate on is not what happens when you meditate, but the fact that you meditate. And the fact that you meditate a lot. It's going to take a lot. And so, and the only way I know to do that, the way I try to help people with that is set up a situation here. This is a monastery, so a fancy word, but it's just a big old brick building. This is empty of what you think it is. But it gives me, you could say, interim credential to talk to people about this. So when I say, all I'm really doing when I talk to you or anyone else, all I'm really doing is I'm saying, get to know yourself. How do you get to know yourself? Hold really still and look at what you think yourself is. Everyone in here, talk to everybody a little bit in here. And I have an idea what you're looking at when you sit. And I can tell you without a doubt what you're experiencing when you sit is unreal. There's no solid being anywhere. If you begin to discover that, the path begins to open wide up. It's called the Mahayana, a great vehicle. Until that time, it's basically, who am I? Who am I? What is this? Who am I? This doesn't mean that you're not helping people or doing that, but the actual Mahayana is it's so wide. It's not even a path anymore. Path is narrow. So sit a lot, schedule yourself. Come here, use this space. 7 to 9 in the morning, 2:30 to 5 in the afternoon, 7 to 9 at night, 5 days a week. You know, every Saturday. Bring your laptop. Down the basement, plug in. We have free internet, guys. Come use the internet, and then when the Hahn and bell ring out there, you might even be the one ringing the Hahn and bell. If you come here, I'm sure you will be. But then come in and sit down. Come in and sit down, look at the wall. Hold everything still that you can, which is, of course, the body, and parts of the awareness or consciousness can be held still. Hold everything very still, and then notice that you can observe what keeps moving. So is that which is observing moving? Or is that which is being observed, is that what's moving? What is movement? Since you brought it up. Find out, it's not an opinion. It's an actual realization. Any final question? Anyone online? Did anyone join us out there?
Anna Maria was trying to get on, but I don't know. Looks like there are a few people.
Okay. Yes, sir.
The razor's edge is what's so fearful is that we believe that it's permanent.
I think so. Yeah, we think we have to get rid of it, but we can't. So we just it's just a conundrum. It's just we can't. It feels like that when we walk on it. It feels like there's something wrong about it. Yeah, if we're on this path and we're using these teachings, which are taking us intellectually and pushing us into realization, and then the physically sitting down and holding very still is taking our awareness and you could say our intuition, another way of talking about the mind, into that openness, and over time it begins to starve the self-centeredness by not fueling the self-centeredness with passion, aggression, and ignorance. And you can't just do away with it because it's not real. If it were real, you could just get rid of it. You could hire somebody to do it, probably.
Does Buddha nature include the perception of impermanence, or is it somehow beyond it?
Nothing beyond Buddha nature. A Buddha nature is lucky to even be a word. Hidden treasure. Okay. You can dedicate the mirror.
We do have our donation box at the back. Please fill it. May the narratives penetrate into all places so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-ho-san, the 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita,